Well, one couldn't script a more extraordinary stretch of events to open the Republican National Convention, where Trump will accept the GOP nomination seemingly at the peak of his powers. Former US President Donald Trump is set to take the stage at the RNC very shortly, where he will deliver a speech as the party's standard bearer just 5 days after surviving an assassination attempt. Trump has said he actually rewrote his speech after surviving the incident at a Pennsylvania campaign rally, and his family and close allies have maintained that the president has been profoundly changed, as Trump and his supporters at the RNC have repeatedly referred to the near miss as an act of God. In fact, there's a new fashion trend among the MAGA crowd at the RNC, one in a line of merch opportunities that have come out of last weekend's assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Introducing ear bandages. At the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee this week, a fashion trend with a difference has emerged. Fake ear bandages, from folded up slips of paper to pieces of tape on their right ears to showcase their solidarity with Donald Trump. For further clarity from Ground Zero, we have with us VOA correspondent Catherine Gibson at the moment. Thanks so much, Catherine, for joining us. Political observers have questioned what a more unifying message from Trump will actually look like and to whom it will apply. Democrats are fully expecting polls after this RNC to show a possible blowout that could bring Democrats in Congress, bring them down in Congress too. What are you picking up on? Trump is expected to address everyone shortly?
That's right. So as you mentioned, Trump is expected to take the stage any moment now with a message of unity. And in going on the convention's floor and speaking to the delegates, the Trump supporters here in Milwaukee, there is an enormous amount of excitement. Instead of the grim and somber atmosphere we expected after the assassination attempt last weekend, instead I'm hearing joy, I'm hearing relief, I'm seeing excitement from his supporters. Many of them wearing now little American flags on their ears to mimic the former president's bandage. They are saying that the stakes of this election are even more important now, that they have more energy because of the attempted assassination, and that they will be excited to go out there for the rest of the election season and tell other voters, independent, undecided ones, that President Trump is the one who will fight for them.
Right, Catherine, though, you know, Trump's agenda, it's traditionally included promises to expel millions of undocumented immigrants, reinstate travel bans on some Muslim-majority countries, also close the Federal Department of Education and cut funding to schools, depending on how they teach about race and gender. Are we realistically likely to see a drastic shift in his outlook now, or should one expect Trumpian business as usual? Have you heard anything from Trump's campaign?
Well, you can look at that from the angle of who he chose as his vice president. J.D. Vance, the junior U.S. senator, is very strongly supportive of Project 2025, which is the overall conservative plan that you were addressing some of those policy initiatives, the efforts to dismantle some government agencies, limits on contraception and IVF, environmental policy limits, a very dramatically different look at the way the U.S. should be run. So with J.D. Vance on the ticket, I think there is very little that is going to change about that plan.
Well, Catherine, do stay on with us as we inform our viewers about the latest update as far as Joe Biden is concerned. The 81-year-old president, now self-isolating with COVID, remains publicly dug in. But privately, he's resigned to mounting pressure, bad polls, and untenable scrutiny, making it impossible to continue his campaign. The Democrats have informed this to Axios. Behind the scenes, the private message distilled to its bluntest form that top leaders of his party, his friends, and key donors believe he cannot win, he can't change public perceptions of his age, and cannot deliver congressional majorities. In fact, multiple reports indicate Joe Biden is being told that if he stays in, former President Trump could win in a landslide and wipe away Biden's legacy and Democrats' hopes in November. The US president is isolating as we speak at his Delaware Shore home as Democratic support appears to crumble around him. Let's go across to Catherine, who joins us live at the moment. Catherine, in fact, an Axios report suggests that Joe Biden could drop out of the 2024 presidential race as early as this weekend. What are you picking up on? A Democratic official has previously said that Biden will not be dragged off the stage. The goal is to let him walk off the stage?
That's right. It's important to remember that Joe Biden has been running for president for decades now. He finally won in 2020. He beat Donald Trump in what he felt was a win for democracy. And he feels very strongly about the accomplishments of his administration. It's going to take some time and pressure from congressional leadership for him to make this tough decision, which by all reports he has not yet made, although there are increasing sense and sources that he will make that decision to step aside. I think what's really key here is that you've been seeing over the past few days reports from the camps of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, the two top Hill Democrats who have a lot of influence and who are hearing from their own rank and file members who have very tough congressional races and are worried that if President Biden is still on that ticket in November, it is going to drag them down and it is going to cause them to lose their own races. And the stakes of losing not only the White House, but also the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives is something that congressional Democratic leadership just cannot stomach. So they are putting increasing pressure on Biden as he isolates while recovering from COVID.
Catherine, thank you so much for joining us with the latest from Ground Zero. Always a pleasure to hear your perspective. As Catherine is reiterating as well, behind the scenes, the private message has been distilled to its bluntest form that the top leaders of Biden's party, his friends and key donors, believe he cannot win and he cannot change public perceptions of his age at the moment and cannot deliver congressional majorities. In other crucial news, the focus is on what triggered the protests in Bangladesh at the moment. Well, they were triggered when the High Court reinstated a quota system for government jobs. This decision overturned a 2018 move by Hasina's government to abolish the system, which reserved 30% of jobs for families of freedom fighters from the 1971 Independence War. The Supreme Court had suspended the High Court order and scheduled a hearing for the 7th of August. But protesters, meanwhile, have set fire to the state TV headquarters. The anti-quota protests have escalated and over 30 people have now died in Bangladesh. Switching tracks, US President Joe Biden delivered the perfect gift for Keir Starmer when the new British Prime Minister arrived at the White House a few days ago. It wasn't the pair of aviators given to Starmer as an official gift through the usual diplomatic channels. Starmer's real prize was actually the endorsement he received from his most powerful ally for his plan to move Britain closer to the EU post-Brexit. Downing Street, it seems, has been quick to seize the moment. Starmer's push to fundamentally shift the UK to a more Eurocentric position, including greater cooperation on defence and a renegotiation of Boris Johnson's Brexit trade deal, was always part of Labour's policy platform. But the swift pace at which the new Prime Minister is moving towards this goal, many political watchers argue, has come as quite a surprise.
After the dawn of Brexit, UK's newly elected Labour Prime Minister Keir Starmer is working to amend fractured ties with Europe as he hosts more than 45 European leaders at Blenheim Palace for a summit to discuss migration, energy security and the threat from Russia.
His message is very much that Britain is back. That after years of wrangling and acrimony in the wake of Brexit, the UK wants once again to be a friend and partner to Europe, although he is clear that it doesn't wish to rejoin the EU.
Among the leaders at the European Political Community Summit were French President Emmanuel Macron, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. The meeting marked a clean slate between Starmer and European leaders as a Labour Prime Minister distanced himself from the Tory rhetoric. In a statement following the summit, Starmer announced that the UK wants to extend a helping hand by re-establishing its role as a key ally to tackle issues collaboratively.
In a dangerous world, we serve no one and solve nothing by turning inward. And to leave the EPC in a stronger position as well.
The meeting also took place against the backdrop of the U.S. presidential elections, which has caused a great deal of concern among European nations on what former U.S. President Donald Trump's re-election could entail for European security. Trump's choice of Senator J.D. Vance as his running mate, who is an opponent of U.S. military aid to Ukraine, has further heightened these concerns. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's efforts mark a significant step in mending the UK's relationship with Europe. Labour's foreign policy approach towards Europe indicates a changing relationship, one that once again places the EU as a close ally. Samia Afsar for NDTV.
In other news, China's President Xi Jinping vowed to make high-quality development the guiding force of the world's number 2 economy, showing few initial signs that the top leadership is preparing to unleash major steps to boost demand or arrest the property slump. The ruling Communist Party signaled China will stay on course with Xi Jinping's plan to use advanced manufacturing to generate growth in a vaguely worded statement marking the close of a twice-decade conclave that's often heralded major policy shifts. The focus on the factory engine could increase trade tensions, with a surge in Chinese exports already prompting fresh tariffs from the US as well as the European Union.
区域重大战略 主体功能期战略、新型城镇化战略、优化重大生产力布局、构建优势互补、高质量发展的区域经济布局和国土空间体系。
And Qin Gang, China's former foreign minister who disappeared from public view more than about a year ago, has actually lost his seat as a member of the elite Central Committee of the ruling Communist Party. The party's elite Central Committee accepted Qin's resignation from the body, according to a communique that was released by the official Xinhua news agency at the end of this twice-a-decade conclave in Beijing. No reason was given in the statement, but former Defense Minister Li Shangfu, who is facing corruption charges, and 2 other senior commanders have also been expelled from the party. There continues to be much speculation about the fate of Qin Gang, China's shortest-serving foreign minister, whose disappearance the foreign ministry attributed to health reasons. In other crucial news, in a landmark ruling for gay rights in South Korea, the country's Supreme Court has ruled that same-sex couples qualify for the National Health Insurance dependent coverage, a decision that rights activists hoped could pave the way for legalizing same-sex marriage in the country. The decision would allow same-sex couples in the country to register their partners as dependents in national health insurance coverage, as married couples or couples in a common law marriage can. Numerous other benefits are denied to same-sex and other couples living outside the traditional norms of family in South Korea, by the way. But in its ruling on Thursday, the country's highest court ruled that denying a same-sex couple national health insurance dependent coverage just because they are of the same sex constitutes a serious discrimination that infringed upon citizens' dignity and values, their rights to pursue happiness, their freedom of privacy, and their rights to be equally treated by the law. Well, as I mentioned earlier, one couldn't script a more extraordinary stretch of events to open the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, but Donald Trump will accept the GOP nomination, seemingly at the peak of his powers. Former US President Donald Trump is set to take the stage at the RNC anytime now, where he will deliver a speech as the party's standard bearer just 5 days after surviving an assassination attempt. Trump has said he rewrote his speech after surviving the incident at a Pennsylvania campaign. His family and close allies have maintained the president has been profoundly changed, as Trump and his supporters at the RNC have repeatedly referred to the near miss as an act of God. Let's just dip into the Republican National Convention, as Trump is expected to headline the final day.
And so committed to fighting to once again make our country great, that there is nothing that is going to stop him.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kid Rock.
What up, America? If you're ready for President Trump to take the stage, I need everybody to stand up. I need everybody to put a fist up in the air. Everybody, get a fist up in the air. Now follow me. Say fight, fight, say fight.
The Republican National Convention has rolled into its final day in Milwaukee, culminating in former President Trump's speech that is going to accept his GOP nomination formally as the 2024 presidential nominee. Eric Trump just addressed the large crowd a few moments ago. Listen in to what Eric had to say.
Good evening, America. Eight years ago, my father sat our family down. He spoke of a nation in decline, of dreams slipping away, of a future endangered by failed leadership and broken promises. It was in that moment I knew my father had made a decision that would forever change our lives. We realized he had chosen to step into the arena, to fight for the soul of America. He had decided to leave behind the comforts of an unbelievable business empire, to leave behind everything he had ever built, to answer the call to serve our nation. Unlike his predecessor, it was not a decision born out of necessity. Unlike the current president, it was not a decision that would enrich his family. Rather, it was a decision made out of love for this country and a deep concern for America's future. My father was clear it would not be easy, that there would be a huge price to pay, and that the attacks would be vicious. Looking back, that was an understatement. The made-up Russia hoax, the sham impeachments, the efforts to destroy an unbelievable company, a company that I run today, the efforts to cancel us, to silence him, to gag his free speech, and to drag him through every radical left courthouse in America.